Hello, hello everybody. Hello. Um, okay, let's try this again. Let's try it again. Yeah, the previous video was just not working out. I needed to share this particular screen, and I was not winning. So at least we are back. Okay, so just what I wanted to quickly share is I just want to quickly do this practical video on how to price your products effectively. This is some of the information, a snippet of information that I tend to help people that are part of my mentorship program. I call it a mentorship program, but it's more of a consultation basically, because I basically help over a 4-week period. I help seasoned and aspiring entrepreneurs to really build business models. One of the key things that I've realized is that a lot of people struggle with issues like business plans, not because business plans are useless, but because business plans start with a business model and a business case. And when you don't understand the components of your business model, it is extremely hard, like it's legit extremely hard to put together a business plan. So what ends up happening is people download templates of business plans on Google, for example, and then all they do is just fill in the gaps. But at the end, when you put this thing together, it's called the plan for a reason. When if I plan to go to for example, if I plan to go I'm in 4 ways now. So if I plan to go to Sandton, for example, my plan is determined by a lot of factors. So number one, what route am I taking, and what determines, am I going to go through the N1? And if I'm going to go through the N1, how do I join the N1, or do I just go by William Nicole, just go straight up, or do I go to the N1? All this is determined by a lot of factors, including how much fuel I have and all these things, and also how the roads are looking. If I'm going to use William Nicole and Witkoppen, do I have the patience for all the traffic lights? At least with the N1, it's like straight up. But so that's what a plan is. At the end, it's something that puts everything together to ultimately get you to a destination. So if I'm planning from 4 ways to Sandton, I look at the route I'm going to take, the fuel it's going to use, the car is going to use, the time I have in transit. So if I'm going to Sandton for a meeting, I don't have all the time in the world. So which one is faster for me to get there? So only in the end, as much as I get to Sandton, the individual parts of the plan are what got me to Sandton at the time that I needed to be in Sandton, for example. So with business plans, it's ultimately that when you download a template and you're just editing on the template, it's not gonna work, because you are you are looking at individual parts outside a full-on plan. So there is no business model that guides it. And funny thing is, if you start with a business model, your business plan literally becomes easy, because all you're doing is you're dividing or subdividing your business model into topics. So for example, a business plan would ask you products and services. What are you selling? It's a topic. It's asking you about your sales and marketing strategy. It's a topic. It's asking you about your operation strategy. It's a topic. But when you look at a business model, your business model then looks at key drivers. So it looks at issues like your customer segments, it looks at your value proposition, it looks at your revenue streams, it looks at your cost drivers, it looks at your partners, it looks at key operations according to the partners. The partners are people like suppliers and so you are taking all that and putting it into a business plan. But effectively you are building towards a plan. So I call it a mentorship program, because I walk with you on the journey and I help you put together a really good business model that helps your business. And the reason why also I'm not necessarily calling it consultancy usually would be you telling me your areas of concern in your business. I go and put together a whole plan for you and then give it to you for you to implement. But the problem with that is two things. One, it is very expensive, because obviously now I'm doing it for you. So obviously, in the regions of like 100,000 that you would need to pay for that, for the plan. Number two, you are effectively not learning how to do it yourself. you are just following an instruction that someone else is giving. So with the program that we did, that we conceptualized, is I walk with you through the journey. But anyway, this is not the point of this thing. I was just sharing with you that this is just some of the stuff that we work with the people that are part of my mentorship program. So anyway, so let's look at how you price your products, how you would price a product. So I understand that some of you might be in services and everything, but the concepts is similar. It's just in your cost price, how you determine, if you're selling a service, let's say you're a marketing agency or a graphic designer, how do you determine what your cost is? Would be effectively looking at, for example, how much you're earning. So let's say you are earning 1,000 rand, so let's say you're earning 1,000 rand a month, and legally you can only work 160 hours a month. So your cost is about 6.25 an hour, basically. If you're earning 1,000, I'm just making an example. Your hourly fee would then be 6.25. So how you determine the cost price is how much time does it take me to do a certain design. So if someone says they want a logo, and logos predominantly take you about 5 hours to do, so your cost would be the 6.25 times 5 hours, which is 31 rand. I'm just making an example. 31 rand is ridiculous for a logo, but I'm just making an example. So that is the distinction on how you would work out a cost price for services, but the principles are all the same. So, but I'm going to show you an example on the basis of a product. It's much simpler. So that you get the gist of what goes into a price. It's not, there's one guy that is part of the mentorship program. I've been with him for the past 3 weeks, helping him formalize his business and put together a business model for him. And one of the things that he said to me is that when we talk about pricing, I realize that I've been doing it wrong all along, because for him it has been about, I buy this thing somewhere for 1,000 rand, and I can just charge 1,005, and I was like, yeah, but if that's how you look at it at the base of it, you are missing out on a lot of things. And guys, it's very possible for you to be selling, but you're losing money at the same time. What do I mean? If you are buying something, let's say you're buying stuff at Small Street, for example, or Johannesburg, and it costs you 100 rand for the actual thing, that's fine, né? And you price only on the basis that this thing is costing me 100 rand, and I've seen someone on Facebook selling it for 150 or 200, so I'm gonna be cheap, I'm gonna sell it for 150. But here's the problem: you are possibly, maybe, let's say you're using your car and you're driving from Pretoria North, for example, all the way to Johannesburg. You're doing about 200 kilometers roughly, and then if your fuel is about 7 rand per kilometer, I'm just making an example, is 7 rand per kilometer, you are spending 1,004. You're spending 1,004 just on fuel, so that's pretty much a full tank. Depending on your car, that's pretty much a full tank. So if your car is using 1,004 fuel, and you are buying 10 items, you are basically spending 140 rand per item in terms of fuel. So your cost is not just 100 rand for the actual product, it's also plus the 140 for the transportation. You must still go and buy boxes and packaging and. So you end up seeing that your cost is actually roughly 130 rand, or let's say 160 rand for the sake of my example. Let's say it's 160 rand. Now, when it's 160 rand and you are charging 150 rand because that's what you want to be cheaper than your competitors, you are effectively losing 10 rand every time you are selling. So if you sell 1,000 of these things, you are losing 10,000 rand. And that is why it's very possible for you to work hard and sell, but you're not making money, and you wonder why you're not making money. You're not making money because at the core of it, your pricing is wrong. You know, at the core of it, your pricing is wrong. So this is how we then go through the exercise of setting prices. So let's say you're buying something for 100 rand. Ne? Let's say you're buying something, and whenever you set a cost price, don't look at the holistic amount. What I mean by that is, if you're buying 100 items, and those items you're paying 1,000 rand for, you'd rather divide, you know, that 1,000 rand by 100 to get your individual cost. That tells you that you are spending maybe 10 rand per item. So always work out your pricing per item. It's very important, and I'll show you why. So the cost price, this 100 rand cost price, is not what I effectively pay a supplier, or the full holistic amount. It's per item, ne? Per item. Now in your cost price, as you can see here, the cost price includes how much your product costs. Ne? It includes your delivery cost, like the example I made. So you need to ensure that you know how much you are paying. If your supplier is delivering to you and they're charging you 200 rand for delivery, and you're buying 100 items, you are saying effectively it's 200 divided by 100. That means you are paying 2 rand per product. You know, two rand per item for delivery costs. So it goes in part of your cost price, you know, as well as applicable taxes. So if your supplier is outside the country, obviously now you start paying your custom duties. So so you need to know how much your custom duties are, divide that by the number of products, and it goes back into your cost price. So let's say in this scenario, you know, the product itself is 50 rand per item. Delivery, we're paying 10 rand per item. And then maybe there are taxes. So let's say the tax is another 50 bucks. So in totality, my cost price per item is 110 rand. Ne? It's 110 rand in totality. Because I took the product costs, I took the delivery costs, and I put into consideration the applicable taxes. Also, your cost price can also include your packaging. So if your item, let's say you're buying laptops and you resell laptops, the laptop already comes in a box, so you don't need to really look at packaging. So that's fine. But in a case where you are buying sneakers or whatever from China, and they come and now you want to package them in your own branding, then your packaging needs to be a cost that you add to it. So if you're buying 1,000 boxes and you only have 100 sneakers, that means you're paying 10 rand per box, you know. So that needs to be part of your cost price as well. So in the sake of this example, let's add that as part of the cost. So packaging, let's say our packaging is now 10 bucks, né? Let's say our packaging is now 10 bucks. Our packaging is 10 bucks. So now your cost price is now 120 rand. So it's costing you 120 rand for the product, for the delivery associated costs, for the applicable taxes, as well as your packaging costs. So now it's costing you 120 rand. Né? Okay, then now we look at your markup. So let's say you are saying that you want to, up by 50%. So 50% is 0.5. Let's just change it to a percentage. So let's say you want to mark it up by 50%. Eh? So what happens is now your selling price is your cost price times 1 plus your markup. Then it gives you 180 rand. So now your selling price is going to be 180 rand. How we work this thing out? Just so it makes sense. What you're saying is that a markup is the price that you're adding on top of your cost price. So if your cost price is 120 rand, 50% of 120 rand is 60 bucks. So you're adding 60 on top of the 120, which gives you at the end 180 rand, you know. And then now the transaction fees are part and parcel of the cost that you will need to be paying, because unless you're and face to face. But transaction fees come in when you are accepting payments. When you're accepting payments, when you are accepting payments through payment gateways, For example, let's say you're selling on a website and people are paying you through PayFast or Paystack or whatever, then obviously those channels are going to keep about 3% of that money. So you need to add this transaction cost as part of your costing, because basically what you're going to add is the 3% of the 120 as part of your cost price. But in this scenario, we are not talking about transaction fees. This scenario, in this example, we're just talking about a person that has, where a business literally sells directly to the customer, receives money, cash or EFT. You're not accepting payments through a website. You're not swiping, because once you swipe, also transaction fees come in and it's part of your cost, and you must account for that cost basically. So in this scenario, we are not talking about transaction fees, so let's leave it at that, but I just needed to highlight that. So now we've determined that it costs you 120 Rand for a product. You've decided that your markup is 50%. So you're going to be selling this item at 180 Rand. So effectively your gross profit is 60 bucks, because your gross profit is your selling price minus your cost. So what you are selling it for minus what you're getting it for, all cost inclusive. So you are making a gross profit of 60 bucks. So there's a difference also between gross profit and net profit, guys. So the best way to explain this is, when you earn a salary, they tell you that your salary is gross 20,000, but what comes into account is probably like 18,000. Gross salary is salary before deductions. Your net salary is salary after deductions. So gross profit is your profit before you reduce your overheads. Your deductions are basically your operating expenses, how much it's costing you to run your business, not necessarily the costs, your cost of sales, but how much it's costing you to run your business. So in this scenario, your GP margin, which is gross profit margin basically means percentage. So this is the percentage of how much you are keeping and how much you can use to pay for your operating expenses. So every time you sell your product, you are only keeping 33.3% of the money. So I'm selling it at 180, but I'm only keeping 60 Rand, which is 33%. So that's also another thing. Your GP margin and your markup are not going to be the same. So just because you are marking up at 50% doesn't mean your gross profit is 50%, because markup is a factor of your cost price. So what we're doing is we're adding on the basis of your cost price, but your gross profit is on the basis of your selling price. And because your selling price is always higher than your cost price, your GP margin obviously tends to be lower than your markup. So if you want to increase your gross profit margin, obviously increase your markup. But I'll explain this. So let's say, for example, now your business operates, your business expenses basically, maybe you're paying a domain, like www.what is 44 Rand. Let's say you are selling on a website like Shopify. You're paying monthly costs. You're paying monthly costs on Shopify. So let's say that is about 500 Rand. And then your marketing budget is, you're spending 1,000 Rand. You're spending 1,000 Rand every month on marketing. And then your rent is another 1,000 Rand every month. Your internet 500. Your phone is 200. Your salaries, let's say you pay yourself 1,005. This is just an example. And then insurance 250. And then maybe you're paying for other software, like Adobe and whatever, another 500. So these are holistic amounts. So this is your total overheads are almost 5,500. So this is how much you need to make every month to keep your business operating, and to keep your business alive. So that's essentially how much you need every month to keep your business moving. Now, then what we then do here is now we say your overheads divided by your gross profit. Remember, your gross profit is how much you keep every time you sell a product. Your total overheads, the expenses to run your business, divided by the gross profit. This tells us how many units you need to sell every month just to meet your expenses. you are not yet making, you are not making a profit as yet in your business. You are effectively just meeting your monthly costs. So this then tells us that you need to sell at 91. Let's round it off to 92. So you need to at least sell 2 items or 92 products in order for you just to meet your expenses on a monthly basis. Now, if this seems like a lot, what you effectively can do is two things. You can increase your price, because by increasing your price, you are effectively increasing your gross profit. But now, if you're increasing your price, you need to be aware of the market average. So there's what we call price elasticity, and your price elasticity is essentially how the degree in which you can increase decrease a price that a customer is willing to pay for. So the elasticity, just think about like a rubber band, for example. So with the rubber band, you can stretch it up until a certain point, but the more you stretch this rubber band, eventually it's going to snap. So when we talk about price elasticity, it's understanding that you can stretch your price up to a certain point, and then once you get to a certain, I know we tend to have conversations like, you are not the target market and what. But you must be careful as well, because sometimes it's not really about, you are in the right target market, or you are talking to the right target market. The issue is just now you've outpriced yourself, you've overpriced your product. So the target market is not going to be willing to pay for it, the target market is not going to be willing to pay for it. If you, for example, people that love GTIs, apart from the fact that there isn't much stock in the country of the Golf 8, but you see more and more people rather going to buy second-hand Golf 7s and second-hand Golf 6s and whatnot, because now the Golf 8 is very expensive. So I'm still the target market. I love VW, I love the Golf GTI, but it is rough. It's now becoming, the price elasticity is getting to a certain point where customers are like, yeah, I'd rather go for the old model, because now, for example, you can get a nice Golf 7R for 400,000, versus almost paying 900,000 for a Golf 8. Just to make that example. So when you increase your prices, just be careful. And the best way to do this thing is to do what we call a competitive analysis. So looking maybe at 10 competitors and looking at a specific product that you sell and see how much they are charging. So you would then put the price for each of the 10 competitors and then divide that price by 10 to get so you add everyone's cost and then you divide it by 10, because that will give you the average. It will give you the average price that the market is charging. So if, let's say for example, okay, let's do it practically. Let's do it practically so I can help you. Let's do it practically. So competitor number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just do 5. So it's easier. So let's say competitor 1 for the same product charges 200. Competitor 2 is similar to you at 180. Competitor 3 is about, competitor 4 is selling it at 389, and then competitor 5 is cheaper than everyone else at 125 rand. So that essentially is your 5 competitors. So what you then do is you add all these prices together. You add all these prices together. So obviously they give you a total sum of 1,144. So you're saying 1,114 divided by the number of competitors, because you want an average, which is 5. So it's basically saying that the average price that your competitors are charging is about 228. So customers are comfortable between the 128. That essentially gives you an average, because the guy who's charging 389 might be overly expensive. So 228 is a nice figure back onto your costing, and then say, okay, instead of 50%, let me do 100% markup. Then 100% markup, you're charging 240. Remember, the average price is 228, so you can probably get away with 240. So let's leave it at 240. let's leave your price at 240. So now effectively you are making a gross margin of 120, or your gross profit, sorry, of 120 rand. Now you are keeping 50%. You know, like I said earlier, your markup and your GP margin will never be the same. But yeah, this time basically you are keeping 50% of the money, which is good. But your overheads stay the same; they don't change. Correct. So now you need to now sell. This equation is not right. You need to now sell. You need to now sell 45. Yes, I think the last time we said 90 something. Yes, sorry, it's so correct. Now you need to sell effectively 45, which is 50% of the original. So now if you are comfortable in saying, no, look, on average we sell 50 products a month, then you know that, okay, 45 is doable. Then the remainder of the 5, that's where now you're then making profit on the additional 5. But so I wanted to share this thing quickly, guys, on the issues of pricing. There's a lot I can say, but also I don't want to be too long. But effectively, pricing is a science in itself. It's not just about saying ke krea the cover 20 rand, and then I'm going to sell them 50 for 50 bucks. There's so much more into it, because at the end of the day you are running a business, guys, and when you're running a business you need to really understand what your numbers are telling you. So like, for example, your gross profit, if this is how much you are keeping, after selling, after paying for your cost, and how much, you're bringing back your money, and that's how much it's costing you and what you're keeping, I mean. And then now you have an understanding of how much it costs you to run this business. So if you need 5,000 rand every month just to pay for your internet, your rent, your salary, and whatever, then it says if you're making an average of 120 rand gross profit on your products, you then now need to sell every month 45 units just to meet your expenses. You're not making profit as yet. You are just meeting your expenses, because profit is after you've paid for everything. Remember, I made an example about gross profit and net profit. In this scenario, when I say profit, I'm talking to net profit. That is effectively what's left over after you've paid for everything. Like I made an example with a salary. So when you go get a job, they say your gross salary is 20,000, and then but what comes into your account is like 18,000. Now the difference between the two is your gross is 20, your net is 18, and the difference of that 2,000 is your taxes. So your deductions. So gross salary is your salary before deductions. Your net salary is after deductions. So in other words, your gross profit is before you start paying for your expenses, your monthly expenses that are not negotiable. You need to pay these things for your business to continue moving. And then your net profit is then the difference of everything after you've paid for everything. That this is exactly what you keep in your business as a profit that you can then reinvest into the business, maybe to buy more stock or whatever. So if your business is consistently breaking even basically means you have enough to meet your expenses. You're not really growing, because growth is in profit. But now, because you've done this exercise, for example, you now start understanding how much you need to sell every month and where your profit lies. Your profit lies from 46 units a month over. So you already know how to look at your numbers, because if this month you sold 50 products, you already know that I've made profit. So if your accounting is not showing profits, then you need to then go back and say, okay, where did we lose money? Where are we overspending in our expenses? Because now it's easy to look at those things and track, because you now understand I need to sell 45 just to break even. Anything over 45, now I make profit. So okay, anyway, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, watching this video. I hope it really helps you out. And if you have a friend that is in business and share it with them, tag them in the comment section, and then let others also be helped. Like I said, I run a 4-week training course. There's effectively 3 that we run. One is e-commerce, With the e-commerce one, we basically help you build an e-commerce business within 4 weeks. So it is the building of the infrastructure, which is the website and everything. At the same time is the business model development, which is essentially what I'm doing here, helping you price, helping you find the right products, the right customers, the right suppliers, how to handle inbound and outbound logistics. So how to receive stock and how to deliver stock. That's basically what that means. Your operations, so that's one. The other one is helping people build digital agencies. In the same line, within 4 weeks, you would have built a digital agency. On one hand, we're helping you how to find clients, or how to prospect clients, how to set up meetings, how to pitch for contracts, and then how to handle your contractual agreements. So this is what we call service level agreements, and then how to price for your services as a marketing agency, and also how to use platforms like Facebook pixel advertising to drive sales for your customers. Because at the end of the day, as an agency, what's important is your effectiveness on how to drive results for your customers. And then on the third level is it's more of a structured training on, you already have a business operating but you're struggling in the business model side of things. And this is where then I basically go through another 4 week process with you, and we go through the 4 pillars basically of a business. Your branding, your procurement, your procurement deals with the kind of products you sell, your suppliers, your sales and marketing. So looking at the sales process in itself, looking at the marketing process in itself, and looking at both processes and how they communicate with one another. And then the last one is your operations, which looks at customer service, logistics, So anyway, if you're interested in each of these, or one of these programs, you can literally just DM me, and just ask the question, and then I'll give you feedback on how much it costs, how it works, and how we pay for it, and how we start, and things like that. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to share this, and tag your friends that are also in business. Let's get everyone to learn and grow. Thank you.